Hi folks, Simon here, welcome back to the channel. I was going to wait until tomorrow to make this video, but there's quite a lot to get through with all the new information that's been put out for the Final Fantasy VII Remake today, so I thought I might as well get a head start on it and put this out now. Okay, so one of the things that has accompanied the new screenshots that Square have put out today is this introduction to the developers. Now, we already know who they are, of course, but a little bit of information from the developers themselves on the Square Enix website. So I'll leave a link to the page here in the video description if you want to check this out for yourself. But in particular, we're going to be looking at some things that Tetsuya Nomura, who is the director of the Final Fantasy VII Remake project, we're going to be seeing some of the things he's had to say in this new information today. So we begin where, and I'm assuming this is what he's spoken, he says that I started up the Final Fantasy VII Remake project around the time of the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. And that's interesting because obviously it's been no secret that fans were asking for the Final Fantasy VII Remake for a long time. It is one of the, the favourites of the entire franchise. But I'm pretty sure it was around the compilation. It was during that period that Square were absolutely emphatic in their declaration that they were not working on a remake to Final Fantasy VII. Remember that whole tech demo from 2005, I think it was, where they showed an updated version of the opening cinematic for the PS3, and they just wanted to make clear at the same time, of course, that was just a tech demo and that they had no plans to develop a remake. Maybe they were lying to us, at least according to Tetsuya Nomura here. If he's got his timings correct, they must have been. Because during the creation of Advent Children, before Crisis and all of that, Nomura himself was already planning the remake project as an entry to the compilation itself. But now, moving on from that, if we just head down here a couple of paragraphs, he says, opportunities for discussing our true intentions, this is bringing things back more now to the present, opportunities for discussing our true intentions are few. Bit of a strange statement, that. Obviously, there's been quite a lot of interviews, there's a lot of new information coming out about the remake since E3 this year. So I think they've got a lot of opportunities, and they've had opportunities to talk about the things they want to talk about. So I'm not sure what he means by that. Maybe you can clarify for me down in the comments, guys, what that statement there means. Anyway, opportunities for discussing our true intentions are few. But with regard to the size of the game that many are asking about, there's no reason to worry at all. Yeah, this is interesting because a lot of people are concerned. Now, we already know, of course, that Midgar, as it's been fleshed out in the remake, is going to be a much larger experience, a much more involved and substantial experience than the Midgar was in the original Final Fantasy VII. However, we do still get a lot of people concerned about how they can be stretching that part of the original game into a fully fledged role-playing game in and of itself. Even, folks that comment on my own videos and on my live streams, a lot of the criticism that people have about the remake is the fact that it's, being cut off at the end of that point. Even though Square have said, and they continue to say, that it is going to be a full, 40-hour, whatever the case may be, experience, a lot of people are still sceptical about that. But, that's reiterated here. So even in this Midgar portion alone, the density and volume are so great that I had to give directions to lighten them. Okay, that's interesting. So in other words, this Midgar part of Final Fantasy VII was so big that Tetsuya Nomura had to actually, rein things down a little bit. Interesting. Okay, so with regard to new characters, we have seen, a few new characters popping up in the various trailers and stuff. A lot of speculation as to what roles they're going to be fulfilling. In previous interviews, I said that there would be none. Though they aren't main characters, their numbers ended up growing considerably in the process of creating a rich depiction of Midgar. Okay, that's cool. When you think of Midgar's final boss, this is interesting, you probably think of the motor. Oh, that's interesting that it's kind of like... been anachronized here. But in this game, new bosses will appear and add to the excitement of the story even more. So yeah, I've been saying for the last well, ever since we've pretty much found out that the remake is going to be ending after the events of Midgar, that I don't understand if how they're going to do that with Motorball being the final boss in the original section of the game there, because he's just would be, he's fine in the original Final Fantasy VII to face off against Motorball as you leave Midgar, but as an entire game, that would be somewhat anticlimactic in my opinion. A few people have disagreed with me, and that's absolutely fine. They said Motorball would be, there's no problem with him being the final boss. I think more people probably do agree with me that Motorball shouldn't be the final boss of Final Fantasy VII Remake. And then there's been a lot of speculation as to what may take its place. Not that Motorball won't be included as a boss fight, he's, it's bound to be, but what comes next after that before the end of the game? But I think we've got some pretty solid clarification here that is going to be the case, that Motorball will not be the final encounter in Final Fantasy VII. Even though it doesn't specifically say that here technically, I think the context of this sentence is that is going to be the case. When you think of Midgar's final boss, you probably think of, I'm assuming that's Motorball, probably, the difference between the Japanese and English localizations. But in this game, but you see that there, but that makes me think, okay, that but there means that it's not going to be the final boss. You think it's going to be the final boss, that's what he says. But, in other words, it's not going to be. Instead, there are new bosses that will appear and add to the excitement of the story even more. Now, I've suspected, since we've already seen in the trailers, that Sephiroth is going to be playing a part in the remake. Interesting, because he didn't have a role at all in Midgar, outside of what other people said about him in the original game, and some of the effects that we saw of him making his way through the Shinra building in order to break Genova out of the containment facility. We don't actually see Sephiroth in the original game until later on, once the party enters Calm, but we already know that's not going to be the case here. We've seen him in the trailers, and I do strongly suspect that he's going to be a part of the game far more than just in cutscenes, that perhaps there will be battles against him, maybe in the forms of flashback battles from times past, I'm not sure. But whether Sephiroth's going to be the final boss of the remake, we'll have to wait and see. But we have got clarification now that it's not going to be Motorball. And finally, this is interesting, we've already begun working on the next one as well, but I'm confident that playing through this title will expand your expectations. Okay, this is interesting because I think it was possibly a couple of months ago, it might have been Kitase, possibly Nomura, one of them I think said that they hadn't actually started to put any focus whatsoever on the next game in the series, but that they weren't concerned about that because when they did, they wouldn't expect it to take as long as this one did, because the foundation has now been laid. They've got the game engine set up, they've got the story set up, they've got a lot of the coding probably done in terms of the design of the characters and stuff. But now it seems they have actually moved on to that. So it makes me, wonder how they're going to be supporting each of the individual games going forward. Is there going to be a lot of DLC content, or are they just going to be pushing these games out and then straight away beginning work on the next game itself? Is there going to be a lot of time in between these games? Are they going to be going for the whole games as a service type of thing? Or is it really just going to be, here's the game, everything's in there for you, now we're going to move on to the next? I'm not sure, but they are working on the next one, so hopefully it won't take too long to begin to get some answers. I'm just hoping they're not going to go the whole Final Fantasy 15 route, because that was too much. That was kind of a unique situation, because Final Fantasy 15 was clearly released in an unfinished state. A little bit ironic, seeing as how, that game was in development for so many years, but that was just clear as the day's light, that game was not intended to be released in that state. They had to do so much fixing, so many patches and then DLCs in order to plug holes in the story. I'm hoping that it's not going to be the case here with the Final Fantasy VII Remake, that we're going to get a whole ton of DLC content just to really fix what should have been in the game to begin with. But we'll wait and see. I do expect that Square have learned a lot of lessons from that, as we've spoken about before. But there we have it then, guys. So there are some words from Tetsuya Nomura. Some interesting stuff there, especially about the fact that they are obviously focused on how to present the boss fights in the game. Something we have been talking about before, but haven't really had any official word on until now. And then just some clarifications as well, of course, as to the fact that the game is going to be big. At least that's what they're telling us right now. Could just be hyping it up, but I don't think they'd want to upset people, not when they've got a whole lot more that they want us to buy after this game. So let me know what you think down in the comment section, folks. Are you excited about the Final Fantasy VII Remake? Is there anything in this new information that's coming out today that has, tickled your fancy? Do share that with us in the comments as well. And I'll see you next time as we continue to explore the remake of Final Fantasy VII. Goodbye.